Call the meeting to order at 6:04, which for Wednesday, January 22nd, for Sanborn Regional School Board. And come on down, you're the next contestants on The Price is Right.
Mr. McCluskey, would you like to say a few words about our students?
Of course. Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
So our four representatives this evening are the U11 Sanborn Lightning soccer champions. And the one that's on this and whenever we have, some guests from Memorial, we like to certainly highlight some of our students that have really accomplished some really special things, such as our students with the mosaics a few months ago, and now our soccer champions. So girls, if you'd like to lead us in the pledge, we'd love to have you here.
I pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sophie. Lucy. Thank you, Lucy. Samantha. Thank you. Oh, I love your medals. Those are so cool. Can I see that? Wow. Those are great. Congratulations.
Not big enough.
Great night.
I remember the one.
Okay. Minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yep.
Manifest is working its way around. Warrants, you want to pass that around now?
Yeah, we can pass it around. Everyone, if you could just sign the warrant, we can approve it on the 8th. So we just need everyone's signatures. Phyllis, did you have the warrant to pass around to everyone? There's oh, right here. Thank you. If everyone could just sign that.
2 places, Phyllis, looks like?
And we can keep going. Do you want me to keep going, Pete?
Yes. No
No
nominations.
nominations, no resignations.
Superintendent's report.
Good evening. I just wanted to give a brief update. As many people know, but I want to make sure for the camera that everyone understands that we have been working, number one, listening to community members about their concerns about the future of the Swayze Gym in light of the potential sale of the Sanborn Seminary property, which we will be having as an agenda item in the future on this agenda. I will be talking with Mr. Chinberg and the board this evening because I did speak with Mr. Chinberg this morning, and he made it very clear that he is wide open to the community using the gym for as long as the community would like to. So what he and I have come to an agreement on what to present to the board. What will happen this evening is when Mr. Chinberg is here, I will be talking with the board about how long the board would like to lease the gym for, and then when the board and the district are finished using the gym, the right of first refusal will go to the town of Kingston. So the town of Kingston would have the opportunity to lease the gym for however long they would like to lease it. I think it's important for everyone to remember that we are projected to lose 400 students in the next 9 years. If we lose 400 students and the town of Fremont no longer is a part of the Sanborn Regional School District, we will not need the Swayze Gym to run an academic program. That does not mean that the Swayze Gym is not an incredibly important part of our community. If it's an incredibly important part of our community, we want the community to have the first opportunity to take over the gym should the district no longer need it for their academic program. So I want everyone to know that we recognize that the gym is extremely important. I've worked tirelessly for the last week to get information and to figure this out, and I am absolutely supportive of making sure that we maintain an incredible athletic program for our kids, particularly the basketball, which is the most impacted. I will also say that the district does need to use the Swayze Gym for the next 4 or 5 years. For one reason, we should maintain the gym because we just put a lot of money into it. We put a roof on it, we made it ADA compliant, we've maintained the floors, and we put in a new burner, a new, is it propane?
It's propane.
Propane heating system. So I feel like we should get a return on that investment for the next 10 years and then make a decision about what our needs are. But that would be up to the board. That's just my opinion based on my research. I also want everyone to understand that we are working with an organization for the potential of leasing the middle school, and that is a warrant article that was discussed at last Tuesday's hearing. I've not completed the negotiations, but the warrant article is designed to give us authorization to lease that school for purposes that are appropriate for the school. So I want to put their concerns at rest. We're not going to put a canning factory in the middle school in Newton, right? It's designed for educational purposes. Should this opportunity fall through, then we would look for another organization that may want to use it for educational purposes. The building isn't really necessarily usable for anything other than offices or educational purposes. So I will share as much as I can as soon as possible. But my hope is that the folks who vote on in March will recognize that having another empty building for another 10 years is not in the district's best interest. I certainly don't expect people to just go on blind trust, but as soon as we clear up the issues with the seminary sale, I'll get working on sharing information about the lease of the middle school. That concludes the superintendent's report for this evening. I do hope that folks will join us for more meetings over the next couple of weeks. We'll be meeting the first 2 weeks in February, and I hope that people will come and listen and talk so that you can be involved and have accurate information as you're making decisions when you vote on the warrant in the second deliberative session in March. Thank you so much.
Committee report, policy.
Policy has not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting is February 5th at 4:45. And I just want to remind the subcommittee chairs that you should complete a status report of your committee's work for the past year prior to March, meaning prior to the election, the school district elections, and forward it to the superintendent. Just a short report, it would be nice for incoming board members.
Facilities.
Facilities met on January 8th, 3:45. Well, actually at 4:14 p.m. We had a tour of renovations being done to consolidate the 7th and 8th grades into the high school prior to starting the meeting. The attendees were Jamie Fitzpatrick, Larry Heath, Tom Ambrose, Matt Angel, and Jim Baker. The committee reviewed and approved the meeting minutes of December 4th, 2019. And the committee reviewed the trust and revolving funds balances as of December 31st, 2019. The special education fund balance is $239,666.67. Capital improvements fund balance is $147,039.18. And the facilities use and revolving fund balance is $191,769.71. Matt Angel presented a request for swipe card access for the high school elevator. Matt explained that he would like to use the district's existing swipe card system so that a proximity card would need to be swiped to activate the elevator during school hours. There is an issue with students using the elevators to do things they should not be doing, such as vaping, and it's very hard to monitor without an administrator being in the elevator with students at all times. The swipe card access lock would be used during school hours. The cost would be to install the proximity card access lock. We discussed the option of a wireless camera as an alternative. Tom Ambrose clarified that the goal is to keep students that do not need to use it out of the elevator, rather than having to monitor the activity that might be taking place in the elevator. The committee authorized $3,000 for the expense of adding the swipe card access to the elevator at the high school. The committee discussed the design for the proposed security entrance at Memorial School. Matt Angel explained that we would like the architect selected for the middle school reorganization to design and come up with specifications to give to prospective bidders. Jim Baker asked Tom Ambrose to discuss a pre-existing design and Tom's ideas that would result in substantial savings over that design. Tom sketched out a comparison of the earlier design and his recommended changes. He discussed how the revised design would improve traffic flow and result in substantial construction savings. The architect would be writing up the specs for Tom's proposed design, not creating a new design. Jamie Fitzpatrick commented that based on his experience, visibility by the office staff at the current entrance was limited and thinks Tom's proposed design would be more ideal. Tom would like the whole project to be completed by the summer. Jim asked for a letter from the architect stating the approximate cost of the architect's work on this before the work is authorized. The committee approved the work contingent on receiving in advance an acceptable estimate for the cost of the architect's fees. Tom Ambrose asked if the committee would accept receiving an email of the letter from the architect with cost to vote on, rather than waiting until the next meeting to review and discuss. The committee agreed, and Jim Baker requested that this process for clarifying architectural costs by project be adopted for all projects going forward. Matt Angel will make sure that that's included in all future requests. Matt Angel reviewed a request to install a washer and dryer at the Middle Memorial School. Matt explained that currently there's not a washer and dryer at the school. It's sometimes students come in that need to have their clothes cleaned. Sometimes it's an emergency. PTO had offered to purchase a washer and dryer, and because of a sale, purchased them before the principal was able to approve the project. The washer and dryer are at the school waiting to be hooked up. However, the location it will be placed requires plumbing and electrical to hook them up at a cost of $2,700. The committee asked Matt to look into a different location for installing the equipment that would be less expensive, but still convenient. And Matt will look to see if there's a more cost-effective location at better pricing and send the committee what he finds. So the authorization was tabled until the next meeting. Matt Angel introduced a number of facilities changes he'd like phased in, install magnetic locks for the high school cafeteria doors, convert room 126 at the high school to a conference and classroom, add cameras to the high school auditorium, add safety glass film to the high school existing glass, and approve a traffic study at the high school to include 7th and 8th grade vehicle traffic. The Facilities Committee will report information on these plans and costs as they are developed. There are more details in the meeting video for anyone that's interested. There were no public comments, and the meeting was adjourned at 4:58 p.m. The next Facilities Committee meeting is scheduled for February 5th at 3:45 p.m. at room 102 at the high school. Finance has not met since our last school board meeting. The next finance meeting is scheduled for February 12th at 3:45 p.m. also in room 102 at the high school.
We met on January 15th. Mr. Fitzpatrick, HR Coordinator Rooney, and Business Administrator Angel and I attended. We started working on updates to 3 job descriptions: financial accountant, accounting specialist, and administrative assistant. It was a productive meeting, and we thanked Ms. Rooney and Mr. Angel for the preliminary drafts of those job descriptions. We hope to complete those and move on to others at our next meeting on February 19th at 5 p.m.
Sorry, I jumped over you. Observations.
That's okay. The public relations can be met on January 14th. In attendance, myself, Ms. Alessio, and Mr. Ambrose. The committee reviewed the efforts that would be needed to inform the community about the upcoming warrant articles. Mr. Ambrose presented a couple documents for the committee's review. The first summarized Articles 3 through 10, and the second offered answers to questions that have arisen about Article 6, which is the seminary purchase. The committee agreed to the immediate release of the documents, and Mr. Ambrose will begin disseminating them through the established avenues. Obviously, he's already done that, including the district website, social media, constant comment email blast, and student handouts. The district will also investigate whether information can be included in a planned community-wide mailing. If not, Mr. Ambrose will consult the board before incurring any additional costs. Article 6 has generated a large amount of interest among the public, so the committee discussed additional ways to present information and gather feedback. A public forum with the developer in attendance was suggested, and Mr. Ambrose will make this arrangement. We didn't include it as a public forum, but we did talk about having a public forum and a meeting with the developer. Ms. Alessio also suggested distributing pictures of the building to promote an understanding of the deterioration that has occurred over time. And Mr. Ambrose relayed that the administration has arranged to work with a student well, at the time, it was discussed to capture drone video.
Yes, we tried. It didn't work out, so I made the video today.
Public viewing on YouTube. There is a video on YouTube that was disseminated earlier today, so I encourage anyone who hasn't taken a look at that. It's only about 8 minutes long. It's interesting. And as we all discussed at the last board meeting, committee and board members will use their own initiative in supporting the articles. So we encourage all members to write your own articles for the paper, whatever, in support of any articles that you feel you would need to. We aren't going to do that as representatives of the board, which is what we talked about at our last board meeting. We did have a couple members of the public who gave comment. Annie Collier of Newton commented that she hoped the Article 6 Q&A contained information on the maintenance cost savings, and that Newton residents she's spoken with have been receptive to information she's shared with them. Mary Sear of Kingston commented about the level of attachment to the seminary that's been expressed by residents and former residents.
Larry, did you get the warrant article?
Yes.
Aaron, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. You got something for us tonight?
Yeah. So it's been pretty quiet in student council because mostly every class is just working for preparing for Winter Carnival. The student council is, however, in the process of making an anonymous compliments box for the atrium. It's kind of going off of our kindness week that we had a while back that went really well. The seniors are also hosting the winter semi this Friday at 7 p.m. and the student council has a Southern District Conference at Timberlane on February 4th.
Juniors are gonna win Winter Carnival?
Oh no, the seniors are gonna win.
Oh.
No doubt about it.
Mr. Broderick, shame on you.
Mr. Roderick, I think that, because we're having a forum with Mr. Chinberg and most people are here for that, may want to hold on first public comment.
Well, we've got 10 minutes.
Okay, we need to do the acceptance of the donation.
Well, I'm gonna do the grant next time.
Yeah, that'd be
Oh,
great.
oh.
Yeah, the grant, yeah.
Okay, you wanna discuss the grant?
Sure. We're gonna move to the agenda item for the grant because we received a donation. I just wanted to tell everyone that, we were very pleased to hear, and I'm asking for the board to vote and accept a $5,000 charitable contribution to the Sanborn Regional School District from Laura and John Bledser. Laura and John Bledser are the owners of 51 Church Street, the building that we rent for the central office. And they gave us back $5,000 of the $57,000 that we rent that building for the purposes of helping students of kids in need. I also wanted to let the community and the board know that the way that we'll handle that money is that principals and guidance counselors will actually talk to me directly about the need, and then I will award the money based on the need because every student's different and every need is different. So I just wanted to be very, very careful with Mr. Bletzer's money and show him how grateful I was that he gave us that amount of money, so I'm going to personally be involved in the distribution of these funds. So the purpose of the hearing is to give anyone in the audience an opportunity who'd like to comment, and then for the board to vote on acceptance of the funds.
Might also want to connect with either the welfare officer from the towns of Kingston, Newton, and Fremont.
Yep.
That may be another source of knowing.
Referrals?
Yeah.
I'm certainly not concerned about a lack of referrals based on the information I've received from our guidance offices already and principals, but I will do that.
Thank you.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Grant?
Second. Gratefully accept the contribution from the Bletzers.
Any discussion? All in favor?
She's meeting Mr. Chinberg.
Oh, okay, so that, okay.
She'll watch the video and take the minutes. She's fine.
Yeah, okay, so, you wanna put up the video now?
Yes. To start off the portion of the evening that will include the forum and discussion with Mr. Chinberg, I wanted to show the audience the video that we created today so that everyone has some sense of the condition of the seminary and the science building. I want to be very clear that this video does not encapsulate one of the most important costs. The Americans with Disabilities Act compliance issues in the seminary building itself can't be distributed or shown in a video, because it needs to have, at the minimum, ramps and an elevator built on the inside of the building without altering the shape of the building because of its historic nature. So I think that's really important, that is not shown on a video. It's impossible to show. The other parts that are very difficult to show on any kind of video are the issues with the abatement of lead, asbestos, and mold. You can't really see those on a video, although in some of the videos you can see some mold. So to give you a sense of the costliness of those issues, we wanted to demolish the wooden component of the science building structure 2 years ago, and it was astronomical to first abate all of the asbestos and lead before even doing the demolishing. So I want everyone to understand that the abatement is a major cost that you can't physically see. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Thomas Ambrose. I'm the Superintendent of Schools for the Sanborn Regional School District. I'm sending this video today to help everyone understand the condition of the seminary and the science building in anticipation of the first deliberative session in February and the vote in March. As many of you know, we are working with a builder named Eric Chinberg of Chinberg Properties. Mr. Chinberg intends to make apartments efficiencies, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments at market value. This community would be open to all potential renters, but his typical base of clientele is millennials and or retirees, but it would not be limited to those folks. And I want everyone to know that Mr. Chinberg would need to put between $6.5 million and $10 million into the property to make it usable. And the intent of the video is to show you how and why that kind of money is needed due to the current condition of the building. All right, everyone, let's start our tour. As you can see, the interior of the building, the flooring has deteriorated. This is the main area. There has been significant water damage, in part due to the failure of the heating system 2 years ago. As you can see over here in the corner, each classroom has deteriorated quite a bit over the 15 years that the building has been vacant. We'll head upstairs and take a look around. You can see there's more water damage here, and a building being cold causes it to deteriorate faster. I will say that I love this old woodwork. It's so beautiful, and I'm sure it'll get integrated into the property. So here's some more damage that's occurred, and the layout of the building is still the same, obviously. Most classrooms have had pretty severe damage from a variety of deteriorating issues, but the biggest one that is the water, but it's also the cold. Currently, we are heating the building at about 50 degrees to keep it up to temperature so that the building will maintain its integrity at the time that we entered into an agreement to potentially sell the property to Mr. Chinberg. Let's go up and take a look at the gym and the upstairs. More deterioration here. This is the former gymnasium. As you can see, we've had to board up windows and walls. The windows are starting to fall out, like this one over here. Take a look at that. So in general, this is the overall shape of this building. We'll now take a walk into the science building and show you that one as well. Good morning, everyone. Now we'll take a quick walk through the science building. So the science building has had a lot of problems, not least of which is the issue of the roof leaking. This building is not heated to be kept up. It is a concrete building, so the shell is solid, but the building will require a lot of work. A lot of people forget that in order for these buildings to be habitable, they have to have all the abatements to bring them up to spec. So lead, asbestos, and things like that have to be removed completely from both properties. And in addition to that, the seminary building needs to have ADA compliance because there's no elevator. And ADA compliance would require that an elevator be built in the center of the building because it cannot be built on the outside due to the historic nature of the property. So let's take a look around this building. So you can see the district has been using the building for storage for cold weather items. Some areas are unsafe for anyone to even walk into, like this area here where the ceiling and the wall has been removed and completely decayed. So there is nothing there but plywood between the outdoor and the indoor. Here's another older classroom. You can see here that the ceiling tiles have completely deteriorated, but within that is the roof leaking issues up above, which we cannot see from here. Another classroom we can take a look in. And down here in the hallway, when I recently visited the building during a storm, this area was all wet because all the water had come in through the roof into the floor here. So the floor is completely peeling up and deteriorating. Can you take a quick walk this way? This is the obviously the old band room. Just wanted folks to see the level of deterioration in the building in this part. And it's similar downstairs, so I think you get a gist of how the building is currently holding up. I think it's really important for everyone to understand that there's a major issue in the science building with the mechanical room because it's under the water table. It has been flooded and will need to be completely rehabilitated. Thank you very much for watching this brief video giving you a tour of the Sanborn Seminary property and the science building. Before we conclude this video, I wanted to make sure that everyone understands that I've worked with Mr. Chinberg regarding the Swayze Gymnasium. We recognize that the Swayze Gymnasium is an important part of our community. Mr. Chinberg has made it very clear that he is totally comfortable leasing the gym to the school district or the town for as many years as necessary to make sure that the gym is maintained and a continued part of our community. I was very happy to find that information out this morning when I spoke with him, and we will be discussing that at the school board meeting this evening. Thank you very much and have a great day. So I just want to take a moment to welcome Mr. Chinberg. Thank you for joining us this evening. Mr. Chinberg will be with us for about 30 or 40 minutes, and the board will continue to entertain comments or feedback even after he leaves until 7:30. There are three things that I'd like to talk about with the board and Mr. Chinberg, and then we'll open this up to the community for comments and feedback. But before I do that, I wanted to mention that the level of water in the electrical or the boiler room at the science building is about 1 foot to 2 feet deep. So it looks just wet from the surface, but it's below the water table. It's bad. So I think it's really important for everyone to know that the board and I have heard the concerns about the Swayze gym. So I'm going to talk about the Swayze gym first. And Mr. Chinberg and I spoke this morning, and we want everyone to understand that we are still finalizing a potential purchase and sale for the property. Within that purchase and sale is outlined the terms for the rental of the Swayze gym and what would happen to the Swayze gym after the district has concluded the use of the gym. Mr. Chinberg and I spoke, and he has made it clear that purchasing the gym is just part of the overall parcel of land, and he is happy for the school district and or the community of Kingston to lease the gym for $1 a year for as long as we'd like. I think, Eric, to quote you, it was up to 50 years if you want, whatever works. And so Mr. Chinberg and I talked about the proposals for the purchase and sale, and this is what I'm proposing to the board this evening. I propose to the board that we agree to lease the gym for 5 years with an optional second 5 years up to a full 10-year period. And then we can assess at each 5-year ending point based on our enrollments. So for example, should Fremont choose to no longer be a part of the district after 5 years, the district may not lease the gym anymore, but at that point, the town of Kingston would have first refusal to lease the gym. So it's really important to recognize that we all want the gym to be a part of our community. We think it's important, and currently, for the next 5 years, the school district needs to use the gym because our enrollments have not declined enough. So I want everyone to understand that I've talked with the athletic director at length, and we feel confident that we need the gym for 5 more years. The second 5 years will depend on our enrollments and whether or not Fremont stays, but it's highly likely that we would use it for the second 5 years. After that, the right of first refusal would go to the town of Kingston for whatever length of time they would like to negotiate with Mr. Chinberg, and we would write that in the purchase and sale agreement so that it's clearly explained. And before I ask the board to comment, I just wanted to ask Mr. Chinberg, did I accurately reflect our conversation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to know from the board to have a vote and direction on where you would like me to head with this, but I'm proposing that we do 2 5-year segments and then reassess at the end of each 5-year period. And when we choose to no longer use the gym, the right of first refusal would go to the town of Kingston at $1 a year.
Just hold 1 second. Aaron, Mr. Chinberg, if it's all right with you, I think you sat at,
They're going to give you a
no,
microphone.
Gordon's giving you one. Okay, I was going to have Aaron give you hers.
Thank you
There
so
we
much.
go. Okay, Jim.
If Mr. Schinberg is fine with extending the lease at $1 a year, I think the school board should have the option to renew in additional 5-year increments. But if we fail to renew, Kingston would have an option to renew.
That's essentially what I just said. Yep.
Okay.
But what you're saying is that after the 10 years, we could get 5 more years.
Right, or
That'd be great.
5 after that, or 5 after that. But if we fail to exercise that option, Kingston would have the first right of refusal on an option as well.
I think that would alleviate a lot of concerns of the folks in the room based on what they've shared with me, either in voicemail, emails, or phone calls, or Facebook.
What if the town of Kingston is not interested in leasing the gym?
Then at that point, Mr. Chinberg would do what he wanted with the gym.
What if a private group who seems to be so intent on the gym wanted to lease back?
Then I would say that at the point at which the district no longer leases the gym, then that group of people would work with the town of Kingston to make an agreement with Mr. Chinberg for the.
If the town wants no part of it, can a private group, Friends of Swayze Gym, for example,
Sure.
they wanted to take responsibility for maintaining and upkeep and managing the gym, that would be another option, I would gather.
Mr. Chinberg, would you?
Certainly, if the town of Kingston exercised its option and then wanted to sublease it to someone else that wanted to pay, if you're paying $1 and they pay you more, then that's a win for the town. I frankly don't have an interest in the gym.
Okay. I guess I would say if the school, neither the school nor the town wants it, and that's a possibility. I mean, we're talking about basketball and sports programs. The town doesn't run these sports programs, so they may not be interested in the gym per se. So a private group then would have to step forward and say to you,
Sure.
we do this, that, and the other, and that would be amenable to you.
Sure.
Mr. Chinberg, is there a way that we could put language in the purchase and sale that reflects Miss Alessio's sentiment?
Well, you could just allow that your right to continually extend a 5-year renewal would enable whoever's renewing, the school board or the town, to sublet it to some user that would not be detrimental to the overall property.
That's a very great way to put that. Thank you. I'm fine with that.
The members? Okay, so we're gonna open it up to the public.
Oh, hold on.
Nope,
No,
sorry.
first, I'm asking the board to give me a motion and a vote for what language you would like me to include in the purchase and sale regarding this issue, so that I'm clear and the folks in the community are clear about what's going in the PNS around the gym at Swayze. So I think Ms. Alessio alluded to the beginning of a motion.
Well, yes, I move that the school district enter into a 5-year lease with Mr. Chinberg at $1 per year, the option to renew for a second 5-year term. Otherwise, the town of Kingston would have first refusal to rent or lease back for $1 per year. And if not the town of Kingston or the school district, then a private group could still.
Or you want additional options for the school, ongoing for 5-year increments. That way the school has. The school can.
Yeah, the
The
wording
school
sounds
would
tricky
have the
because-
first refusal, I guess, right along.
In 5-year increments.
In 5-year increments. And the secondary opportunity would go to the town, and the tertiary, if that's the right word, would go to a private group.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? No? Okay. Yeah. Move the motion?
Yeah, we're gonna vote now, right?
Right, well, you put your hand up, I
Yeah,
wasn't sure
no,
what you were gonna do there.
yeah, the motion's been seconded.
Yeah, okay, so move the motion, all right.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Thank you. The second really prevalent issue that has come up throughout the course of the last couple of weeks that I think that we need to address is, I think that a lot of folks have asked a lot of really good questions about the selling price. So I asked Mr. Angel today to pull the appraisals that we received for the building, which outlined the selling price, including the Chase Fields. I think that's a very important point that a lot of people don't understand, is that the two appraisals included the Chase Fields. When you remove the amount of money for the Chase Fields from the appraisals and account for the deterioration of the buildings and the needs of the buildings, one of the appraisals said to level the science building. It was worth $0. One appraisal said that the science building, the seminary building, and the Swayze gym were worth $710. And the other appraisal said
That's
that,
a little bit more than $700.
sorry, $710,000. I've been reading this all day. It's all available online if you want to read it for yourself. Yeah, can I have 710? Thanks. Next bidder. Thank you. 710,000, and then the other appraisal had it at like 770 and 710. 770 for the science building and 710 for just the gym. So, look, the way the appraisers put it to me when I called them and talked to them about this is that the reality is the building is worth what someone will pay for it. So when you take the Swayze gym out of the picture, let's say it's worth 700,000 or 710. The reality is that Mr. Chinberg is offering $200,000, but he's going to have to invest $6 to $10 million to make this work. And the building is not in good condition. The elevator alone, to bring it into ADA compliance, is a tremendous sum of money because it cannot be constructed on the exterior of the building. It has to be constructed on the interior due to the historic registry. So I just want to be very clear that we cannot modify the exterior of that building. I certainly think that this is an important point. People have wondered about the purchase price, and I just want everyone to understand that when you pull all of these different things out of the appraisals, the purchase price is basically $0 to $400,000. When you pull out all the different pieces. The board has felt that $200,000 was fair, considering the difficulty in finding a builder that can take on a project like this. It's important for the community to remember that Mr. Chinberg does not need financing for the purposes of doing this project. It is not contingent on him receiving financing. He is ready to do this for our community. And I need you all to think very, very carefully about that. The other question that's come up a lot that I really wanted everyone to be aware of before we start having public comment is questions about the expenses for the property. We have spent over $1.25 million over the last 5 years to maintain the seminary property. That sounds outrageous, but it is true. We've put a roof on the gym. We've put new boilers in both buildings, the gym and the science building. The gym had to have ADA compliance. There's mowing, plowing, maintenance, heat for the seminary building, heat for the gym. And I just want to be clear with everyone that as our enrollments continue to decline, we will no longer need that gym for the Sanborn Regional School District, but we recognize that we need it for the community. The Sanborn Regional School District needs the gym for the next 5 years. I'm not sure after that. So we've been over that already this evening, but I want you all to understand that the expenses are real and they're very, very expensive. For 1/4 of that money, I could fund the books that I need for K through 8 for 3 or 4 years. I just need you all to understand that. So having said that, we certainly are happy to open this up to discussion, and if I think of anything else I need to share as we move forward, I will be happy to do so. Would the board like to ask Mr. Chinberg any questions before we open it up to the public?
Well, I guess I've been living and sleeping this project for 5 years. I was part of the team from the town of Kingston and looked into purchasing the property from the district, and we came pretty close to a land swap, and then we discovered that the land we wanted to swap wasn't going to be buildable enough to make it equitable for the district. And I was dismayed by some of the comments, by many of the comments online, because we've not been operating in a vacuum. And I'm sorry that a lot of people have not been more aware or informed about what's been going on. But it's not a matter of going out to public bid. It's a matter of finding the right developer to preserve a big piece of the center of the town of Kingston. We've been very fortunate to connect with Mr. Chinberg. It came through our Heritage Commission folks that wanted it to a quality developer to enhance the beauty of that property. Now, it seems like 200,000 is not a number people thinks it's not enough. But if you had raised that property, if you were looking at the 10 acres, 1/3 of which is underwater, the property also sits on the aquifer zone, which means that any building would require 3 acres of land for, let's say, a house. So the most you could put is 2 houses on it. $200,000 is not that far off the mark. But it's not just about the money, it's about the quality of the development for the future. And so we shouldn't lose sight of that. The gym is a whole nother ballgame, and there are other options down the road, but please do not think we just gave up and decided to give away the property. That is not the case at all. And I think we've been very responsible as a school board to come forward to you with the right proposal for the future. We are not in the real estate development business, and nor should we be. We're supposed to be educating our kids in the district, and we hope you'll support this endeavor.
Excuse me 1 second, Ellie. You want to talk a little bit about Envision Kingston and the importance of the seminary? I don't know if you want to bring that up.
I'd be happy to.
You and I were both on those committees.
Absolutely happy to. Some of you may remember, especially those of you who lived in Kingston, although we had invited our colleagues from Newton and the board to participate. Kingston did a second Envision Kingston. What would it be like? What can we do in Kingston to improve our tax base? And it's a struggle for all of us because we support our schools and our town government through our local property taxes, and it's a huge effort, very big effort. And this district over the years has done a tremendous effort in supporting our schools, as painful as it has been for some of us, more so than others. But Envision Kingston was an opportunity to dream. If we could do anything to help develop Kingston, what would we do? And one of the things we focused on was the fact that over the years, Kingston has spent a lot of money in preserving the environment. We have 25% of the land in Kingston is under conservation use, so that it cannot be developed at this point. The town has actually bought up big tracts of land to keep it from being development. The town also has more than 6 hiking trails with the site of the state park. We have a beautiful center of town with a 1 mile circumference in the center, adjacent to the seminary property. In that blue sky that we had done for a weekend, we looked at the possibility of making Kingston a destination community for weekenders. Not an Ossipee or a North Conway, certainly, but a weekend where you could come, maybe go stay at a bed and breakfast, enjoy the lake, do some hiking, visit some of the historic buildings that we have in the community. And one of the key pieces was looking at the seminary property and developing it so that it fits in with the center of town, not an abandoned 10-acre site of decaying buildings. I know you saw the video, but that does not do justice to the deterioration inside those buildings. But Envisioning Kingston had a whole way of looking. It's a 20-year project. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, and it's going to take some time. And in that, so far, the town has already changed some of its zoning to allow for a bed and breakfast to be located on the plains. Right now, on the warrant for this year, there's a proposal to enact RSA 79E, which offers an opportunity for the selectmen in Kingston to grant some tax relief for a short period of time to a developer that wants to restore historic buildings. Mr. Chimberg would qualify for that with the seminary property. Those of you from Kingston would think of the old post office, what is now the down-to-earth garden center that's taken off, where that's that building right next to the town hall. That would be another piece of property. It's not for anyone in the historic district who wants to put aluminum siding on their houses. It's for someone who wants to spend at least $75,000 or more, or at least a 15% of the value of the property, to get some kind of tax relief in the meantime as they put forward all this extra money to remediate. And that high school property is going to have a huge amount of remediation. I'm not even sure the $10 million is going to do. You're going to have to take all that stuff, that mold out of there. I don't know how we let Mr. Ambrose go in there without a face mask, to be real honest with you. But then he didn't go downstairs, I don't think, in the
I did.
You did? Shame on you.
I went in the roof too.
But if we did the legislation for the bed and breakfast, we hopefully will pass 79E, get the seminary property developed, not by us as a district or as a town, but by a professional who has a track record of quality work. That's what we want in the center of town. We don't want a half-hearted, notice I cleaned that up a little bit, half-hearted attempt at a development. So I really do hope you'll support us. And I'm sure there are more questions. I know I haven't heard it all, but there's a lot to be said for where we want to go with this, and we hope you'll support this endeavor.
Thank you. And Ellie, I would like to just give Mr. Chinberg a moment to address the folks who are here about what his plans are for the building, with recognition that whenever someone's developing a level of a property with this amount of money and time, that I just don't want anyone to feel like Mr. Chinberg's boxing himself in, but he does have a general vision. Mr. Chinberg, could you share that?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. My company over 30 years has sort of built a business in restoring and saving historic buildings. It's a passion of ours, and one that we've done in multiple seacoast towns and towns in Massachusetts and Maine. The most successful, or really the only path forward I see for saving this property, is to create market rate apartments in both the seminary and the science building. And we would do the work according to the historic National Park Service standards for historic buildings, and we would need all the tools in the toolbox to make it feasible. It's very difficult in the current climate with the building codes and zoning regulations and all of the hoops you have to jump through to make something reasonable. And we're just completing the historic Hilltop School in Somersworth, which the city of Somersworth tried for years to get rid of, and no one came forward, and they finally sold it to us for $1. And even after that, it took us 2 years to assemble the right package of financing and investment to make it feasible. We hope to open that in a couple of months. I think it's going to work, but it's a challenging thing to bring these buildings back. But our general goal and thought right now would be to do nice market rate apartments that are reasonably affordable to people in the community.
Before I open up to the public, just a couple of things. Certainly we want everyone heard, but if someone asks a question and you were gonna ask a similar or the same question, could we ask each question once? I'm gonna say we'll probably end this sometime around 7:30, depending on getting everyone heard. And as a wise woman once said to me at the deliberative session, play nice. I wonder who that could have been, Ellie. So, you know, it's a hot issue. People are concerned, but we want to be adults about all of this if we can. And Jamie, I saw you raise your hand, so.
Yeah, I just got a couple of questions. So, should at some point in time, in your corporation changes hands, you're no longer in charge of it, would the new owners have the ability to, say, bulldoze the seminary?
Well, geez, I'd be happy to put something in the P&S that prevents that, but certainly,
Thank you.
we wouldn't want to make an investment.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
So that we could have that. And I also just wanted to make the point, so it's a rhetorical question, but anything that you did in terms of plans would have to go before the Kingston Planning Board, correct?
Of course.
To be reviewed and approved by the representatives of the community. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All set? Yeah, because of the number of people, I would like to keep this to about 3 minutes. If you could, please. We have a lot of people, may go a little longer, but let's see what we can do.
And I just want to let everyone in the audience know that the board will be happy to hear anyone's comments, but I think Mr. Chinberg has another engagement he has to get to at about 7:15?
7:20.
7:20? All right, thank you, Mr. Chinberg.
Cheryl, I saw you heading towards the mic. If you give your name and what town you're from, please, so we can put it in the minutes.
Cheryl Gannon from Kingston. I have 3 questions. One is, what happens to the $200,000 from the sale? Does that just go into the district's general fund? Is it earmarked to be spent somehow? My second question is, can you explain the town vote for Kingston and if there's a contingency for that passing for this sale to go through? And my third question is the whaleboat still in the science building? The whaleboat project? We did many years
The
ago?
whaleboat's been gone for many, many, many years.
Yeah, okay.
The tail is still in the science building, and we're gonna be taking it out of the science building in the next couple of weeks and bringing it over here.
If you'd like it, I'm sure the board would be happy to give that to you, Cheryl.
It's the tail.
Give
it's not
it?
the
I don't
boat.
have to pay
The
$1?
boat's-
I think the boats have been gone.
Boat's gone.
The tail was the artwork that's in the stairwell that goes down in the cafeteria.
So I'll answer the other 2 questions. The first question was about the $200,000. Okay, that will go to offsetting property taxes. So that would be done at the conclusion of the year that the purchase occurs, and then it will happen in 2 payments: $20,000 the first year and $180,000 3 years later. So that was the agreement that we have made at this point with Mr. Chinberg. I'm sure he could speak to that as well. And then the second question, can you read that? Oh, the 79E. The 79E is incredibly important for this to pass. Mr. Chinberg cannot develop this property without the 79E passing. So that has to pass in addition to the warrant article to sell the property.
That's the board of selectmen.
That's the Board of Selectmen's warrant article. It is not the school district's
For
warrant article.
Kingston, so the Kingston voters need to pass that.
Yes, the
warrant
Kingston voters need to pass the 79E warrant article. That's
And
it.
if they don't,
If they don't, I don't believe this deal would be able to go forward because Mr. Chinberg needs those tax credits to make it work. Mr.
Thank you.
Chinberg, would you like to comment on that?
That's correct.
okay, I totally support this. The property is, if you looked it up in the dictionary, would probably be right under white elephant. And it's just such a shame to see what's happened to that beautiful, beautiful building. And these pictures that you're showing up here of Mr. Chinberg and his company's work are just beautiful. So I'm
Thank you, Pam.
very much in support of this. Hi, I'm Mary Sear from Kingston. I would like to thank Mr. Chinberg for being here this evening. It means a lot to the community as far as demonstrated goodwill. I also am in support of this project. I think you do beautiful work. It's stunning. And as was stated previously, it will take the right buyer for this property to appease all of the components that are at play, the town, the seminary trustees, the graduates, the district, etc. My one question pertains to a statement that you made while you were here, sir. You said, I have no interest in the Swayze Gymnasium. If that's the case, why is it included in the purchase and sale agreement or the proposed purchase and sale agreement?
From my perspective, it's just because right now it's all in the same lot. And if there was to be a subdivision in carving that off prior to our deal, that would be fine with me. Sometimes you need the extra land mass to make your density requirements work. But I'm completely open if the town desires to subdivide the gym off and have it not be part of this deal, it's the same difference to me.
So just to be clear, I want to make sure everyone knows that the board discussed that, and the board is not interested in maintaining, keeping the gym. So the board is selling the entire lot. I'm sorry to be the bearer of not bad news, because the district is willing to lease back the gym and maintain it. So I just want everyone to understand that the board has discussed that, and I know that it's hard to get out to school board meetings, but you may have missed that point last fall.
It's also important you realize that at $1 a year, first 5 years, the next 5 years, the next 5 years if we want it, the next 5 years we want it, the next 5 years we want it. So our grandchildren will be sitting in these seats before we even then say, how about another 5 years?
Right.
For $1 a year. Laura, what do you got?
Hi, Maura Basha from Kingston. I'm wondering who pays for the maintenance for the Swayze Gymnasium. You mentioned the roof. If there's some repairs, who would be responsible for the repairs?
School district.
The school district.
If we lease it for $1 a year, it's just like we own it.
So is there any cost analysis of what that might be, or has most of the major repairs already been done to the building, or
Yes.
are we going to be sinking money into the gymnasium that we're just not going to recoup? But based on what Mr. Chinberg said, it's kind of ours for a long time.
Yeah, no,
For
that's a
as long
great
as we
question,
want.
Maura. I would say this. We have done a lot to that gym. We just put a new roof on it last year. We just made it ADA compliant. The new boiler system was improved in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And so I strongly recommend that the school board take the lease for at least 10 years, because we need to capitalize on that investment. The question really is about student enrollments.
Mm-hmm.
If our student enrollments drop to 400, we are expected to drop. Now, I want to be clear with everyone. We lost 400 in 10 years. So from 2008 to 2018, we lost 400 students. We went from 2,000 to 1,600. So this is not a pie in the sky estimate, but the NASDAQ study showed us that we are likely to lose 400 more students in the next 8 to 10 years. And our kindergarten enrollments are exactly in line with that prediction. If we lose 400 students and Fremont pulls out of the Sanborn Regional School District, not only will we lose 400 students, we'll lose $4 million in revenue.
Right.
So we will not be having a conversation as a community about the Swayze gym. We'll be having a conversation as a community about which 2 schools we will run at that point. 2.
I think that
So I want everyone to understand that the enrollment situation is really, really serious. And as the person who's been hired to lead the district, I have to tell you things sometimes that are hard to hear. But the reality is that if we have 1,000 students, we will not need to maintain the Swayze gym. And at that point, the community, the town of Kingston, or the folks, the Friends of Swayze gym that want to form and take it over, will work with you, right? We recognize that it's a community center, but there's a point where we have to balance the expense, because this is why we spend $21,000 or $22,000 a year per student. We're running 5 campuses for 1,600 students. I know districts that run 2 for 1,600 students. And the seminary campus is a serious expense. I know this is hard, but you need to know these things so that you can make an informed vote in March.
I do think there's concern because right now there's not enough gym space. Everybody wants Swayze and you can't get into Swayze. My son practices basketball at Memorial School. It's really not ideal, and concern over 6th grade sports. Any estimated costs? Sorry, last question. Any estimated costs of how much it would cost to run Swayze moving forward?
Yeah, if there are no major repairs, Matt can answer that question through the spreadsheet that we shared on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
What was
Sorry.
the?
I'll look it up on Facebook.
I believe that it can cost between $20,000 and $80,000 for operating costs, but I think for some of the capital improvements, we've run up to about $200,000 a year
Or more.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So
I'd like to
Wait, that's for
clarify.
that's for Swayze?
Yes, it is
Wait,
right.
but I thought that's what
Yes.
I thought that's what the whole campus was 200,000 a year.
But we also,
What's just Swayze itself?
we also put in a roof at a large amount. I
No,
don't
but
have
like
the
moving
spreadsheet open.
forward, what would we expect Swayze to
I'm
cost?
pulling it open right now.
Oh.
Because whoever said that that's not accurate is wrong. We've done the work on this. We've looked at all the expenses for 5 years. We created a spreadsheet that we shared on Facebook for public access.
Excuse me. No, you can't just speak out. I'd be more than happy to hear from you at the podium.
So hold on, I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, just for the record, because it's a hot topic.
And this is just for Swayze.
Just for Swayze.
I just asked him to do that today. I stopped by him.
These costs continue with the lease, is what the spreadsheet says. So if folks followed everything that's been shared and read what's been shared, they would know that in 2013-14 it cost $9,378. 2014-15 it was $10,000. 2015 and 16 it was 18. 2016 and 17 it was 21. 2017 and 18 it was 21.5. And 2018-19 it was 27. And in the total cost up to 2018-19 was $170,863, not including any capital issues.
But that's not a per year cost. The per year cost is 15,000, 20,000 per year.
I'd say about 21 to 22 now, but with inflation and everything. Right. But I want to be very clear with people. That those costs go up and down dramatically based on what happens with the building.
I think that there's concern about we could go and dump all this money into Swayze and then potentially lose Swayze. But Mr. Chimberg has said that he has no interest in it, and we can
absolutely.
I would like to clarify that comment. My comment was, I know the community has interest in it, so I don't have designs for it.
Okay.
But if end of the day, the school system says, I don't want it anymore, and the town says, I don't want it anymore, right. I love buildings, and if people come to me and say, our kids need to practice, and it costs $20,000 a year to keep it afloat, then we would say, okay, let's work out a deal where it brings in enough to keep it afloat.
Right, but we can justify spending the money for the upkeep for Swayze because if we choose to keep it, we're going to reap the benefit of that. I think there's concern that we couldn't reap the benefit of putting the money into it.
Totally the intent. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Hello, John Coxell, Town of Kingston, actually employed by the Town of Kingston. But question about, you might not be aware of this, but they use the Swayze gym for elections and all that. A lot more parking, everything like that. You can have apartment buildings that need parking for that too. Is there any, we're gonna be moving the elections to one of the other school properties, or what's gonna happen with that when this goes through?
I could address that, and generally that the parking requirements for apartments are far fewer than commercial space, or I would think even schools. So my guess is that there's ample paved area right now. We haven't done a total study, and there wouldn't need to be more. So I just, with 10 acres there, I don't see that as a concern.
Okay, the same with the tennis courts, all that stuff would be still available for?
I don't know if we've discussed the tennis court specifically, but I don't know that. Certainly the gym, and I'm open to the tennis courts if we don't need that for septic systems or whatever.
Well, thank you. You're a blessing. I mean, that's a huge albatross that the town doesn't need anymore. So it's good that it's going that way. We hope everyone votes for that. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Ursula Gianusa, Kingston.
couple quick questions. How many units are you looking to put in altogether?
I don't know exactly, but generally the units that we're doing, there's around 55,000 square feet of gross square footage there. That could translate anywhere from 50 to 68 or 70 apartments.
Okay, so let's say we do the low number at 50 and we are still looking at declining enrollments. How does that factor out? If we're gonna have 50 to 70 more potential families move in, I don't know if that's necessarily going to decline enrollments, especially where since December, we've had 10 new students at Bakey. I mean, I know it's hard to predict, but has that been factored in at all?
I suppose that makes it more important that the town keep the renewal rights on the gym.
Right, correct. So just something to think about. Thank you.
Hi, Vanessa Matias from Newton. This question is more directed towards the board. I know I haven't been keeping up with all the videos, but help me understand why you wouldn't want to parcel off that land, Swayze, and keep it.
Okay,
If
the
he's
question is,
willing
why
to-
would we want to? Why wouldn't we want to keep it?
Yeah, why would you? I mean, if you're
What would
still
we do with
required to pay maintenance fees for the upkeep of the property, why would you not want to keep it and have use of it and have full ownership of it if he's willing to parcel it off?
It's been empty for 15 years.
Swayze, I'm sorry, just Swayze.
Oh, the gym. Oh,
Just
I'm sorry,
Swayze,
the gym.
yes.
Yeah.
Let me go with that, Peter.
Okay, I thought you meant the whole
No,
complex.
no,
You know.
Jim, we will have it for $1 a year for as long as we want.
But we're still paying maintenance fees on it.
If we're using it, yes.
So
why would we want to own it?
Because you're still paying the fees and then you have a guarantee that you have this property, and then maybe later, if they were still interested in the building, like he said, what's the difference 15 years from now if you say, okay, we no longer need the building, now we're willing to get rid of it to you, but at this point, you know you have control of it, you know, you don't.
I guess I don't see I think it's to our advantage to lease it for $1 a year and maintain it for as long as we want it. With the potential for declining enrollments, I don't see it.
I disagree. I think it's, but and we're allowed to do that. Yeah, but okay. Thank you.
You know, if I can just maybe answer, you know what my concern would be if we kept it? Would be in the same situation 15, 20, 30 years from now as we are right now.
We're talking about that, so.
Hi, I'm Judy Cronk-Smith, and I'm from Kingston. And I graduated from Sanborn Seminary in 1954. And the last of our 3 kids have graduated from Sanborn. And today I was at a monthly Sanborn luncheon at K-Hop here in Kingston. There were about 30 there, alumni, and all about my age. And most of them have moved out of Kingston, but there were some from Kingston, but everyone wanted to go with this improvement. They felt that the seminary is what makes this town. It is in the center of town, and it's a beautiful building, and that is one reason that my family moved here in 1953. I was just wondering, though, the last time I set foot in the seminary was in 1983, and I wonder if there would be a possibility that the buildings could be open so that those who wanted to see the inside of the buildings could do so. There are not that many people here from Kingston and Newton tonight. And when you think of all of the voters that we have that might want to go through the buildings to see just why it needs to have someone like Mr. Tinberg come in and take care of the situation, I think that it's a darn good deal. I know that a lot of people think that the amount of money offered is little, or nothing, but what he'll have to do to make it a beautiful place again will be so much more than any of us could even think of doing. And we wouldn't want to see something like happen to Sanborn that happened to Robinson Seminary in Exeter to be torn down. And so I just wondered if, in fact, that could take place.
So it's a wonderful idea, and unfortunately, the building does not carry liability insurance for folks to go into it. So if someone were to go on a tour and fall and get hurt, we wouldn't have liability insurance, correct?
I believe so.
So we will look into that. If we can secure the insurance, or if it's okay with our insurance company, we'd be happy to offer it. But that's part of why I made the video that we showed at the beginning of the presentation this evening. The video, Ms. Alessio is absolutely accurate that the video does not capture the totality and the gravity of the degradation of the building. It just gives you a snapshot of how bad the situation is, and really it outlines the science building better.
Well, this is what I mean. You don't have a very large attendance here tonight.
Yep.
And there are so many people who probably think, why, the $200,000 when you've got a beautiful building over there.
Yep.
And so they can't see for themselves the destruction that has taken place.
Again, if the insurance company will allow us to have tours, I will be happy to conduct them personally.
Yeah, I think it might be a good idea to
It's a
look
great
into
idea.
that.
Yes, wonderful idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, before you speak again, just kind of a parliamentary rule, but if you could speak last, because you've already had one chance to speak, just that way everybody gets a chance to speak before because we really don't like to go second and third times.
Hi, Erin LaValle from Kingston. Mr. Timber, I was just wondering if you could give us maybe an estimate as far as with the units, how many would be studios, how many would be 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms?
Sure. Typically now we do about 1/3 of each, about 1/3 studios, 1/3 ones, and 1/3 2 bedrooms. We're not doing 3 bedrooms. We're trying to build units that are relatively smaller. Our demographic is millennials, the folks that you'd like to stay and live in town, and we do have a lot of sort of vibrant empty nesters, and it's kind of those two demographics that are the predominant people who live in our properties.
Okay, so 2 bedrooms at the most.
Correct.
So for possibly a small family, but.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's important for everyone to recognize that one of the goals is to attract people to Kingston and Newton and have them be here. Maybe they'll buy homes and stay. But we recognize that in New Hampshire is slated to lose 55,000 students over the next 10 years. This isn't just a Newton and Kingston problem, it is a state of New Hampshire problem.
James Surratt, Kingston, New Hampshire. Just a quick question, as far as on all that land, are you gonna put any more buildings, or it's only gonna be the 2 buildings?
I don't have any plans to do additional buildings, and I know that the density, I think that you alluded to the fact that the zoning doesn't allow very much. We're gonna need to do something with water and septic capability. That's why I was a little reluctant to, give up the tennis courts, for example.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unknowns because there is not public water and sewer, so there's some challenges there. So don't have designs to do that, but I'm not saying we wouldn't.
Okay. And one other question, what about the school? What are they gonna do with the grounds building in the back? Where are those guys gonna go?
Great question. That was included in the information as well. We will be leasing the grounds building and the technology building for $1 a year as well, temporarily while we figure out the grounds people in particular. We may need to find another home for them, and that really does depend on a number of different factors. So temporarily for the next few years anyway, they'll stay where they are.
And how much is the lease for that?
$1 a year.
$1 a year?
Yep, and we have that spreadsheet that shows you what the expenses are for each of those buildings as well.
Because I would imagine it's gonna cost a few bucks to build something for them to keep equipment and.
Yeah, it's hard because it just depends on how far our enrollments really do decline.
You still
That's
have to
going
cut
to-
the grass though, I think. in
Yes, sir.
Palos.
Yes, exactly. But where you house what you cut the grass can change as buildings become available. So building a building for any purpose right now would not be a very good idea for us. Especially until we know whether or not Fremont is staying.
John Conan from Wyndham, New Hampshire.
Excuse me,
Eric,
you
I'm
said
happy
Win-
to hear that you like buildings.
excuse me,
That
sir?
made me feel pretty good.
Wyndham? Excuse me, did you say Wyndham?
Wyndham. As a graduate of Sanborn in 1961, I do take a lot of interest
good.
into the school and the seminary. Now, we talked a lot about the internal part of the building. Just my own curiosity, as far as the external, the architecture of how it's going to look, is there going to be a lot of changes to that at all, or remain the same?
No, part of the tools in the toolbox to make something like this work will be getting federal historic tax credits. And the criteria are very strict, and you need to bring it back to its original glory, essentially.
Okay.
No major changes.
Good, thank you.
Hi, Kelly Cullivan from Newton. I just had a question regarding the condition of the interior of the building. I know that when we saw the video, we saw that there was a lot of water damage everywhere in both buildings. But my thought process went to, okay, yeah, there's water damage. You know, you get a leak in your ceiling or your roof, and you know, you repair it. How many years has this building been empty?
16.
16 now?
Completely empty.
I think 15. Well, to
Because
be
we had
clear,
SST in there at one point.
not
right?
SST, another group, but the
charter
charter school did rent the science building until 4 years ago or 5 years ago.
Okay.
So the science building, it goes to show how fast a building deteriorates when you turn the heat off.
Well, this was my question. Neither one of those buildings have air conditioning, correct?
Correct.
And how long have we had water damage in this building?
Well,
Probably about 15 years.
one of the buildings, the science building, at least 5 years, and the other building at least 10.
So we've had every summer for the past 5 to 10 years in historical buildings with water damage. The amount of mold the smell that you must have encountered when you walked into that building today must have been overpowering.
It's not the smell, but I will say that I had a pretty severe allergy attack this afternoon related to the visit.
Yeah. Is it even possible? I mean, it's just my thought process. Is it even possible to clear out that amount of black mold out of buildings and have it safe?
Yes. So
Okay.
the New Market Mills, there one section that had been empty 30 years.
Okay.
A lot of water damage, and it just requires more work, but it can be done. It can be done safely, and we work with all the right hazmat specialists, and it gets done.
Would it be of any risk to any of the local residents
No.
in the area when you're removing it? No? Okay. Not even in the gymnasium? Like that close proximity?
No, when they do work on remediation, they create negative pressure and HEPA-vacs. They do, it's all with, you know.
Like ET-like?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Essentially, just to answer, Mr. Chinberg, feel free, but I just want to take that question one step further. Essentially, the entire interior of both buildings needs to be completely removed and rebuilt from the core structure back up. Essentially. I mean, Mr. Chinberg, would you agree with me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Charlton, do you have a question? Yes. It's getting kind of late and it's past 20 past already.
All right, hit the buzzer when you're done with me. All right. I've heard a lot of talk here tonight about community, but I've heard nothing about the town of Newton. And I think the board has lost sight of the fact that Newton owns this property too. I wrote down this note. If I didn't know better, I would think I'm at a meeting of the Kingston School District. It's disappointing. You say there's been a statement that the property is only worth what someone will pay for it. That's true. I know that. Businessmen know that. However, I've been on 3 committees studying this school. Went to school there, been here forever. This property's never been listed for sale. It's never been put out to bid. So you don't know what you can get for it. You really don't. You've had this gentleman come in and make you an offer, but who else is out there? So if I offered you $210,000 tonight, you're gonna sell it to me?
No.
Yeah, there you go.
Are you
So-
offering us 210,000, Charlton?
What's that?
Are you offering us 210,000?
No, but there's a point
Well,
to that.
okay.
I just don't think you should make a bad deal just to make a deal. That's okay. I'll get more focused on the gym because I think that's people's really concerns. I'm first taken aback by the yearly figure to maintain the Sanborn property because I was on the budget committee. And never, ever did I hear this figure being anywhere near this high. I'm not saying you're not right, but this is brand new. The gym is owned by the town of Newton, as well as the town of Kingston. The focus shouldn't entirely be on how's this going to benefit the town of Kingston? How's this going to benefit the town of Kingston? My dad had a great saying, Kingston wins again, Newton gets nothing. And this is where I see this headed again. The purchases, all these options, all mention Kingston. It should be reciprocal. It is the school district. The simple answer, I think, with the gym is, Mrs. Sear brought it up, is for the district to subdivide it and keep it, own it. I know the school property is made up of 6 or 8 parcels, and the gym may be on a separate parcel. It may not have to be subdivided. Well, maybe.
We've already checked that.
All right, so it can be easily subdivided then. All right. That way, the district owns it. You can do the town of Newton and the town of Kingston in the future can, when that time may come or not come, can both decide what to do with it. Leasing it for $1 sounds like a great idea, but you've got everything else except ownership. You got to maintain it, you got to plow it, you got to sand it, and you have to insure it. And in the end, you give up all your equity. Just walk away from it. That makes no business sense. Own it, keep it. 5 years, 10 years from now, then you can make that decision. And the gym prop, how many acres on the gym? Do you know, Mr. Ambrose?
Like I said, it's a 12-acre parcel of land. It's not subdivided.
Yeah, but how many acres are on the gym?
Because I happen to look it up. There's 10 acres what we're talking about. There's 3 parcels of land. Chase Field, there's a piece that I showed you a couple of weeks ago that goes between Chase Field, the walkway going down.
Oh, I walked it many times.
And then 10 acres on the seminary lot itself.
Yeah, but
that includes the wetlands.
Well, okay. But anyways, 10 years from now, if you just want to walk away from the gymnasium, you can walk away and sell it to somebody for a house lot. And then Newton and Kingston both make money on it, not just walk away. So just don't do that. Simple answer, keep it for the future. Thank you.
I would like to say one thing, that the reason why I said I wouldn't sell it to Mr. Swayze for $210,000 is because the goal isn't just to sell it for the amount of money. The goal is to find someone who has the capacity to develop it. So, Mr. Swayze, I just wanted you to know that it was nothing personal. I'd be happy to sell it to you for $210,000. But
how do you know I can't develop it?
The real question
that's the question. How do you know I can't develop it?
Charlton, I was just joking.
I know
Relax
that, but
and sit
I'm just
down.
using this as an example. That hasn't been looked into.
Sit down.
That's all
Thank
right.
you, Charlie.
If I had a gavel, I'd use it, but I don't.
Okay. Could I just see if I can smooth this out, because it's already 20 past and beyond that. Do you have questions for Mr. Chinberg? Because if you do, could we get those first, and then it's questions for the board so that he can leave, if that's all right with you. All right.
My name is Stan Chalette. I live in Kingston, been living there for over 30 years. I've seen this town develop, and I'm very proud to be a citizen of the town. My question is to Mr. Chinberg. Is there a possibility to make the development into some condominiums, or this is just going to be apartments?
There is not a possibility for condominiums, at least in the first 5 years of it being in existence, because to make this work, we were going to have to seek national federal historic tax credits. Those require that the ownership does not change for a period of 5 years from occupancy. after that, it could be condominiumized. That's not how we generally operate. We keep them as apartments, but it cannot happen initially and be feasible, no.
The next question is, do you have to go through the National Park Service? I think they have a 50-page application. It's very hard to fill out, but I guess you're well experienced in doing that.
Yes, it is. It's a long application, and we hire a consultant, and they do it, and we've done it a lot of times, so yes.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Lindsay McDougall, I'm from Kingston. So pertaining to your statement about tax credits, and it also pertains to what Stanley just said, so are you planning on putting a preservation easement on this property to protect it?
In order for us to obtain tax credits, it has to be on the National Historic Register, which I believe it already is.
Yes.
In which case, at least for the period of what they call the recapture period of the tax credits, it cannot be altered. But it's certainly, we've owned many properties for 30 years, 25 years past the expiration, and we've never changed them on the outside. That's all.
I guess my next question would be to the school board or the school district. Are we planning, or are you planning on putting a preservation easement on the property to ensure it is protected from any, change of hands even down the road to protect the building from demolition or major alterations?
I've never been asked that. Ellie, would you know?
In order for, probably, I guess is the right word, because we will be working with the Heritage Commission to preserve the building. Our intent is not to demolish the building at all.
Oh, absolutely.
And so whatever regulations to preserve that will go through the Heritage Commission through the town of Kingston.
I had another question. I guess it's better for you. In terms of ADA compliance, is that still required if it's for residential use?
Yes, it is. There are certain smaller structures that you don't have to do, but this would not qualify for that. So we would have to figure out how to get an elevator into the seminary. And of course, the science building's all on one level, so that would be easy.
Okay, thank you.
Jim Doggett, Newton. Mr. Chinberg, inside both buildings, there are still some architectural details that were actually one was class gift. As a matter of fact, it's nice that we have Major Sanborn here. His niche is still in the seminary building. Probably not something that you want as ornamental, for an ornamental purpose when it's a apartment building. Things like the arches at the main entrances. Those were class gifts from, I believe, the class of 85 and maybe 89. Those things should come back to the district. I realize if we sell it to you, it's part and parcel, any aspect of that coming back to the school district.
Anything that you want or use I'd be happy to give it back, but the arch is beautiful. It is part of the fabric of the property and the history. I'd want it to stay. We're just finishing the historic Hilltop School in Somersworth. We left blackboards with lesson plans from 1979 on the blackboard in the living room when we protected them, so they're there. So it's we're not trying to remove the fact to the current user that it was a school. So features that we can keep, we'll keep, and if someone wants stuff that we can't, be happy to give it to them.
For the most part, I would agree with you that things like blackboards would be. However, like I said, actually one of the earlier speakers, his class gift at graduation is part of the old library, and there is still a granite plaque there dedicating it to the school from that class.
Absolutely. If the school wants
things like that, Major Sanborn's niche, which gives the history of the creation of the school, is more appropriate to be. The reason I ask this is I'm also a budget committee member, and I asked this on the budget committee, and nobody could tell me what could be happening with some of these things.
I have no interest in doing something that would upset the historical propriety of things. So if that was deemed to be something that you guys wanted, then I'm totally fine with that. I can't rip out stuff from the exterior, like the arches, without possibly upsetting the federal historic tax credits. But stuff that's on the inside, sure.
The arches are at the gateways, and they actually were added after I was one of the people that worked on getting it on the historical.
Yeah.
I'm very open to that sort of conversation. So.
Okay, but that's something maybe the school district should be asking the class that donated it to the school whether or not they object or they want to see the school district retain it.
I think he's going to finish. Okay, there we go. Okay. Are there any more questions for Mr. Chinberg? Just okay. Okay.
So I've been studying your projects, and they're just wonderful. I was just wondering, since this is a historic building and it's a magnificent beast, it's part of the Kingston town, and I was just wondering, is there any way, or have you done this with your other projects, maybe had a vestibule where people can step inside the front entrance and there are artifacts from the history of the building, so that if people take tours through the area, they can actually be inside the building. So I'm not saying you have breakfast with someone residing there. I'm just wondering if they could step inside the entranceway and just observe some of the...
The answer is yes. We've done it in multiple ways. In lobbies, we've done the electronic locks are open during the day, and people come in and see historic stuff. We've also done easements through a building if there's a cupola or a bell tower that are available to the public with notice. So absolutely.
Okay, so we're done with everybody else.
We have it. Vanessa had one further question.
Yeah, but was it for Mr. Chinberg or just?
No, it was not.
No.
All right.
Okay. So thank you very much. Sorry we
Thank you,
did
Mr.
hold
Chinberg.
you over, but
you very much.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if everybody has their one question that they've asked, I guess I can make an exception for one more.
So I don't even know if this is possible, but has the board considered sort of a contingency in the warrant article where if it doesn't pass from the community out of concern for Swayze, that maybe you could consider, assuming he would agree with it as well, that the sale could still go through and that would be like a plan B, so to speak? Because I'd hate to see this not go through because of the concern for Swayze.
So I think that it's important for everyone to recognize that the plan B is the fact that we've worked with Mr. Chinberg to be able to lease the building for as long as we want to. That is the plan B.
But that's
The
part of the
district is
current
not,
warrant
the
article.
district is not interested, and we have discussed this already, so I'm speaking for the board.
Mhm.
The board has been united that the entire parcel of land will be sold.
So-
But leasing back the gym is really important, and we're doing that because we hear everyone.
So, but you've said yourself, if it doesn't pass, then it's sort of poof,
If it
it's
doesn't,
gone.
if it doesn't pass, the district will be forced to assess the expense on the entire property and whether or not to continue that.
So again, you would not consider a contingency plan.
You can't
in the
do
warrant.
that with
Can't put a contingency plan on a warrant article.
So you can't do an additional warrant article? Hey, if this one, you may not have, it's too late. Could somebody propose something like that at the deliberative? It's too late.
I think,
Okay.
I think Matt would like to talk about this because he's done the survey of the property, and this will help you, Vanessa.
Okay,
It's a
so
great question.
So as many of you know, that there's like 6 to 8 different lots that make up the seminary property. The problem is some of the boundary lines that are on those lots, you can't find them because it goes, like 100 feet to a tree that doesn't exist anymore. And so right now I'm trying to go through and redefine the deed description for the property. And in doing that, I've also come across the application for making this a historical building. And that application is very specific as to what the boundary is. Now, to carve out the gym, we have to redo that application, have that reapproved, and then we could move forward, okay? That would take time. So if you had a contingency on there, I don't see us pushing through any changes for more than a year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And Vanessa, I just want to be very, very clear. We recognize that the gym is really important.
Yeah.
And that's why I called Mr. Chinberg first thing this morning. And we are going to maintain the gym for as long as the district needs it. I don't want anyone to leave, but the way to do it is to lease it.
Yeah, and
That's what's best for everybody. And as the leader of the district, I have to be clear about what the research has yielded as the best possible option.
And I understand that, and I
Thank
thank you for that, because that was certainly a concern of mine, but I'd hate to see something so good get shot down, so that's my concern.
Are there any further questions for the school board concerning this seminary project? All right. How does the board feel about a couple minutes to go to the little ladies' room or little men's room?
Sounds good. Motion, so moved.
I was shocked.
If I can have your attention, we can get started.
James, thanks for coming. You too. See you later.
That lady was still, she said she wanted to talk to the board, but I guess she left. Okay. Now, technically, this first public comment, is there any public comment concerning school board issues other than perhaps the seminary that we just finished? No school board issues? Okay.
Moving right along.
Yep, moving right along. We are under old business.
Yearbook, Mr.
Mr.
Stack.
Stack, how you doing?
I'm ready.
We got a yearbook update?
Yeah.
Follow-up?
Yep, I'm passing out just some handouts for you on that. Oh, in case you want to see what the last couple of yearbooks have looked like, I'll start one on this side. Start one on.
You can give it to Mr. Roderick.
I've seen plenty of them.
All right, so I just wanted to give you guys a quick update by request on what the yearbook revenues have looked like for the last couple of years, well, this past year, and what we're going to be doing, or what we started to do different for this year and moving forward, just so you can get a sense of how the yearbook gets put together. So the document that's coming around, just to give you some background, there's 4 pages here to look at. The first page is actually our beginning of year 2019 worksheet, budget worksheet. All right, so that talks to you a little bit when we work with the vendor. We have two yearbook advisors, and we have anywhere, depending on the year, between 3 students and 7 or 8 students that work on the yearbook is like a class that they get extended learning opportunity credit for. So beginning of 2019, they sit down with the vendor, they talk about what they think their anticipated yearbook sales are going to look like, what the costs are going to look like depending on the size of the yearbook that they're going to be getting, any adjustments that the vendor can make for them, and what they anticipate they'll sell for advertising ads. And then from all of that, they can get an estimate on what their budget is going to look like and what their potential profit or loss might be. And those kind of give them some goals to work towards when they do the yearbook. So the first page I'm giving you has last year's yearbook information. The next page you're looking at has that exact same worksheet, however, for this coming school year. So a couple things that I want to point out. Of course, you can dive into as much information as you want later. There's a couple big changes that we made between last year and this year. The biggest change, however, is a decision that we actually made 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, we made a decision that we wanted seniors to be able to leave here having their yearbook already paid for, so that we could take away the X factor as to whether or not they would be purchasing a yearbook. So in order to do that, we made a permanent increase to the class dues, and we spread out the cost of their yearbook over a 4-year period. So this year's graduating class is actually the first year that reaps the benefits of that. So we have guaranteed sales coming in from all of the seniors, knowing that they're all going to get a book. So that's one major difference. Another major difference that you'll see is the vendor sat down with the yearbook folks this year and took a look at a couple of things. One, what can be done to cut the cost of the yearbook? And then 2, can we come up with maybe some more realistic figures for advertising goals? So you'll notice that the vendor actually had an increase in some of their discounts that they offered the kids. The kids also reduced, or we worked with them to reduce the number of pages that the yearbook was going to be this year, which lowers the cost a bit. They also made some adjustments to their sponsorship goals. So you see some, they actually reduced it by $1,000. And we can talk a little bit more about that after. The last 2 pages in that handout, the third one talks a little bit about the sponsorship piece and what that looks like and the pricing for that. And the last page tells you where they're at right now with the sponsorship piece. Now recognize the sponsorship piece is something that they work on January, February, and March. They actually have to get them submitted by March 12. So the beginning of the year, they focus on the content of the yearbook, making sure that they're going to have those pieces in play, getting all the senior quotes and pictures and all of those things sorted out. The January, February, March piece is where they make the push to do the sponsorship piece. This is very much, this entire yearbook project, it's very much student-centered. So it'd be very easy for me to sit here and say, all right, if I'm going to be planning the yearbook, this is how I'm going to approach it. But really our goal is to try to give the kids the tools and then really push them to do some of the work. So that's the short version of my presentation. I know you've had a long night, but I can also take some other questions. And if there are things I can't answer tonight, I'll get you answers on them from the yearbook folks.
Just a question. When you're looking at the first page and the second page, the bottom right number, is that before any sales?
Yes. Yep.
And the estimated revenues on the second page went down by about $3,800. What is it? Why is that?
So one of the big things is if you look at how the yearbook is priced, because we know all the seniors are going to get a yearbook, they're going to get it at the lower price, as opposed to in previous years. What ends up happening with the yearbook is the cost of the yearbook goes up as the year goes on. It starts with a lower price to really try to entice more people to buy, and then it starts to jump up in price. So that's where that distinction came from.
So because more people are guaranteed it at a certain price, that's the difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other question I have is, how are the sales teams comprised? Is it just the people that are on the yearbook committee, or is it expanded beyond that?
No, it is just the yearbook students that work on that. So
how many people did you say it was?
We have 3 or 4. There might be 4.
So they're responsible for all these sales?
They will, yes. And they certainly don't start from ground zero, right? I mean, they have a database where they have anyone who's purchased ads in the past. They have leads of people who said, don't forget me, I want to buy from you this year. They have parents. In their class, they'll brainstorm parents who have businesses, own businesses that they can tap. I feed them leads, like I bring the students. They actually just went last week to the Plastow Area Commerce Exchange, and they'll make a pitch at a meeting to the businesses that are right there, hand them the flyer, make that eye contact. That's something that we work with them on.
Has anybody thought about people in the yearbook committee and maybe an advisor pitching this to existing student groups like the Key Club or something like that, and say, hey, why don't you guys take this on as a project and sell these ads?
We have not over the years, so that's a good idea. That is a good idea.
Oh, actually, Jamie had his hand up before you.
It was just, I think that it was answered. These are estimates, right? So we
Yes.
don't know the actuals.
Yeah, no, these are the beginning of the year estimates. So and the reason I was trying to show you that is I was trying to help you guys follow that same process the kids will follow. Because, the thing is, every year I can look and say, great, I've been here 14 years. I should get better at this every year. But the kids are brand new. This is the first time they go through it every year. And this is really their starting point. So I wanted you to see it through their eyes.
I'm going to suggest that you even have a competition and pay some of these kids for the ads that they sell. Because nothing works better than a little incentive. And the list that you have for companies, I saw one of them. They're outdated by about 20 years.
Yeah.
And it it's not gonna work, but if you've got your regular kids that like to do layout and design, they're not gonna be your salespeople.
Yeah.
So you really need to look at maybe a group like the Key Club, or, I mean, your teachers will know, you will know
Yeah.
the natural born salespeople that you have amongst your staff.
Sure.
And why not incentivize them? As long as we get the money that you need to make the cost of the yearbook, what's to say if they can get 10% on every ad that they sell, assuming we make enough money to pay for the yearbook? You see what I'm saying?
I do.
And why
Yeah.
not make it a business enterprise? And Brian
Sure.
did speak with me earlier about meeting with the yearbook group and talking about the businesses. But you got 3 towns to deal with, because you got Fremont too. It's not
Yeah.
just Kingston and Newton, it's Kingston, Newton, Fremont. Never mind the Plasto area that our friends and families do business with.
Yep.
So they need to look at a bigger group, which is why I think a real sales team that makes money on the money
Yeah.
is a good way to go.
And so you know, Ellie has offered to help.
Not selling the ad.
She
but
has
I-
a little she has a little experience in how
Be
the
the richest
process
yearbook
works.
ever
I
if
think
Ellie
we all
sold the
know that,
ads.
and we're going to be taking her up on that.
But that's
actually,
a perfect
so.
example of our students benefiting from the folks that live in our community.
Yeah.
Right? Ellie has tremendous experience, and we thank you for offering to teach our kids some of those skills. That's more important that they learn the skills of how to sell the ads than the actual amount of money.
Yeah.
And also how to make money, because I used to tell my staff, the Bank of Carriagetown is closed. Until I get paid, you're not getting paid.
And also too, I mean, really, what I'd love to see come out of this is they actually get to a point where now they have a profit which becomes seed money, so that when the next group comes in, they're not starting with this. Well, okay, how big can we make the yearbook? Because we've got to raise all this money. They kind of have a set amount that they can already start with and work with.
Because $15,000 is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
It's scary.
It is a lot of money.
For these kids, that's a year's tuition.
Absolutely, yeah, without question.
Especially when you're asking artists to do the sales.
Yep.
Right, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yep, true.
Right.
I like the idea of having the kids compete to sell ads and getting a little bit of a kickback to their class fund.
Yeah.
That's really
May
fun.
have to run that one by Mr. Angel, but I'm
Yeah,
sure there's
Mr.
a way
Angel had to
around
step
it.
up.
Oh, we can convince him.
Anytime I throw something at him, he usually finds a way to do it, which is
Yeah,
great.
he
But
works
you
hard
know,
to do that.
for something like that, I would definitely want to clear it by him.
And see, this is economic opportunity here for some of these
Sure.
young people. Like sales a
Yeah.
lot and find other opportunities down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Policy, second read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stack.
You're welcome. Brian, do you want these?
Yes. Oh, here, Mr. Stack, I have a ton of these. Please. Oh, Phyllis would like one though. Phyllis can take them, yeah. I was more concerned about the yearbook.
Well, I've got lots of colors, lots of left.
I don't think there's about those.
Okay, all right.
So I'd like a motion we approve revised policies GDB, IHBAA, and JFABD as amended, and adopt new policy JFABE as amended following second read.
So
Can we, well, I think we need to leave JFABD, have the first 3 you said, but that one, because it's a new policy, might have to be a separate motion. You see what I'm saying?
No, they're all second read.
They're all second
Yes, but
read, but one's new and 3 are revised.
See, the one new one, that's, I think that needs to be a separate motion, because it's new.
Well
I'm
then,
sorry. Thank you.
So I'll move
Revised.
that we approve for the purposes of discussion.
the 3 revised policies.
Do I have a second?
second.
Okay.
So, just so you know, we need to approve, or we'd like to approve, the non-union support staff benefits. We discussed it again at our last policy meeting. We haven't modified anything, but we do want to revisit this policy in the spring, because there's a lot going on in the policy we'd like to discuss further. This is just a stopgap measure so that the superintendent has flexibility in hiring in a tight labor market. So we modify, the vacation schedule, so it's not so long. And Mr. Baker recommended that we strike the sentence right here. For example, if a new hire receives 3 weeks, blah, 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 because that relates to that former long schedule we had, but we truncated it. So it's really not an applicable example. So we want to strike that sentence in parentheses right there. And that's really the only change from the last read. A big plus of a union is you receive a fixed step and salary increase. A big minus of a union is you get a fixed step and salary increase. In other words, in a tight labor market, you might be more marketable and you might be able to negotiate more effectively. Did you understand what I just said? Not a clue. All right, fine. So anyway, we need flexibility in this economy. That's what we need right now. And moving down to the next two, HBAA and FJFABD, I changed, I didn't modify this one. It's required by law. I added for JFABD revised, I suggest we add as required by law. I did talk to our Director of Student Services, Jody Gutterman, and she tells me this is the bare bones regulatory language to have us comply with federal and state law. There's nothing additional added into these policies. It just restates what we have to do anyway per regulations. When we approve these mandated policies, it doesn't necessarily mean we agree with them. We're just making our administrators' lives easier because we have it in our manual, and if they want to refer to it quickly, they don't have to read through the RSAs. So we're really doing it to assist our administrators oftentimes and the public. We're not necessarily agreeing with the new policy.
Well,
It's just to facilitate.
When the board approves a policy, they are putting it into place. So I'd be careful about saying that individuals may not agree, but as a board, when you vote to put it into place, that is board approval to follow the policy.
We're approving a mandated policy.
Yeah, there are policies that are mandated by law. I mean, you may
Right.
not agree with them personally, but sure. I just wanted to be clear for the public so that they understand.
Well,
that,
that's why I vote yes, because
I
it's
know.
making
Thanks.
a principal's life easier. I may not agree with it, but
Right. But it also,
it should be in the manual.
the key is that the core of policy is to protect the district from liability, not to make administrators' lives easier. We have to protect the district from liability. And this is a very, very likely situation that could cause, this is probably one of the most important policies that we have, that we keep it tight to the law.
Right.
Which I have no problem with what Pam, as required by law. I mean,
Well,
that's fine.
my comments really relate to the last one, which is only recommended and not required. In that case, I may or may not agree with it, but it helps our administrators to have it in the manual. So I just added as required by law.
So you're not gonna keep in Pam suggests?
I wouldn't keep that in now. And then, for the third revised, no, I guess that's it. So we have those three revised. Any discussion?
Yeah.
All right.
So go back up to the first one, the GBD, I guess it was. So you struck out everything. So what is the vacation policy now? We don't have one?
No, it's the sixth, it's what we agreed on at the last meeting.
6 months, 1 week vacation, and 1 year, 2 weeks.
And
Well,
then the
after
rest,
that, there's
and then it
nothing.
goes back to the way it was before. Go back up, Pam. Wait, Pam, I think you made a
There's
mistake
no,
with
there's no
this.
vacation schedule listed anywhere.
Yeah, you didn't leave in the, she's only supposed to strike out. Can you go up a little more, Pam?
Oh, okay.
Lines 1 and 2.
Oh, we're retaining the remaining lines?
7 through 15.
We are?
6 through 15, yes, those were supposed to stay
Okay.
in. What the board voted on at the last meeting was to change the first 2 years and then have it start at year 6.
Oh.
Thank you, Jamie.
Well, my understanding from the last meeting was we added the adjustments at the bottom, and then we added the comment that the superintendent has leeway, and the rest of it did not change.
That is correct.
So whatever 6 years said prior to this discussion, it still says.
Yes, that is correct.
So I'm just moving these 2 up to the top
Yep, and
and
taking
retaining
out,
6 on, 6
yep,
years on.
Actually, it would technically be, it would go above 1 to 5 years because after
Correct,
1
it'd go-
year.
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So all those items that are crossed out should not be crossed out.
Correct,
Except for
and,
the
and
first
and
one.
the red one
Good
should
job.
be up top.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yep.
So would it be 2 to 5 years? Is that what you're saying?
It
Or
would be
just-
6 months, 1 week,
Okay.
1
Oh, I
year,
see.
2 weeks, and then after that,
It's the schedule.
2 year. Yeah, and then it really would be 1 year to
Greater
5
than 1
years,
year
2
to 5,
weeks.
yeah, greater than 1 year to 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm just writing this down. I thought we had stricken most of this
No,
schedule.
There was a whole other set
There
of,
was a whole other set of them that we struck.
you just wanna make
The
sure that
reason
what's,
being, we're grandfathering in a lot of people, or we
No,
felt like
no.
there was some implicit contract or something.
No, we can't. We did not. We agreed to make it 6 months, 1 week, 1 year, 2 weeks,
Right.
and then leave the rest of the schedule for now until later.
Okay.
the original review changed every single line item and added more vacation time
That's right.
to every single line item. And what we said was the intent was to be competitive and to give flexibility to the superintendent to be able to deal with market realities, and also to adjust the initial period that basically said people had to work for a year and a half or something before they got any vacation whatsoever. So we said, let's fix those 2 pieces, but the rest of it should stay the same.
Okay.
We're not on earned time yet, so.
Anything else?
So if you go to the next one, the homeless student, that's the one that I had the issues with the inoculations, the vaccinations. So we say this is what's required by law. Why don't we just copy and paste the law? Then there's no doubt that it's what's required by law.
Well, typically the law
can
reads in a
change.
very awkward way.
And if you put that in, then that's the law we go by. If they change the law next year to put an and or an or something, then we're not in compliance. But if you say by law, you'll go whatever the law changes, we automatically go by that law.
There's more to this than that, and this is a very complicated topic. So I called Will Phillips and talked with him for about an hour about this. Will's free. He's from the NHSBA. We pay our membership and we can access him for policy work at any time.
I'm not gonna say.
I know, Ellie, don't go there. All right, hang tight. So Will explain to me why this is gray and why there's some confusion, because Jamie, you have a sharp eye, you catch these things, and I want to be clear that the law, there's some parts of this that haven't been contested at a higher level court. And what they are telling us is that the way this policy written is what they think is the best practice based on what they know from the different conflicting components of the law and what has been tested in court. So he highly recommends that we adopt this policy the way it's written. Now, does that mean that you can't argue back and forth that the real gist or risk in this policy is this? One law says that we're supposed to remove the barriers for homeless students to go to school. That is clear. The question is vaccination a barrier? So if you're a homeless kid and you can't get to the hospital and get vaccinated, and then the school doesn't let you go to school, there are lawyers walking around looking for those cases to litigate against schools and make money. So Will said, it's going to be easier on us because once I pulled all the data on the vaccinations, we have very, very few non-vaccinated students. I think it was 11, and out of those 11, a couple of them, most of them were 1 vaccination, and most of them are for medical reasons, not other reasons. What we do as a district is, as soon as a homeless student is admitted, we work as quickly as possible with a clinic to try to get them their vaccinations. So what I'm saying to you as a board is, don't make a problem a problem. This is not a problem. That's my opinion, right? And the research and the data supports that. But if you're not comfortable with the policy, I understand.
Where do we say there though, Tom? Because you just made a statement that I don't recall reading in there when I read the policy.
No, that's what we do in practice. That is not a policy, right? Our nurses hook homeless kids up with
Because that's what I've been advocating all along, is what you just said.
Yeah, but there's a difference between policy makes it that you have to do it, right? What if there's this isn't a problem, guys. That's all I'm saying to you. This is not a problem. I talked to the nurses, I talked to the union, I talked to the principals. Everyone is fine with this policy in the process. Is it absolutely perfect and completely tested by courts on all different sides? Not yet. Who will be the next case? I don't know, but Will strongly recommended that if you change this, that you're setting us up to be the test case.
And I've read some of the RSAs and the regulations, and it's just the same language. They're just trying to make it a little more palatable, a little more readable, but the intent's the same.
The bottom line is that we want kids to be vaccinated and we expect it. And we will do what we can to get it done for them. But to make it a barrier to enroll in school would be a huge mistake, is the way we'll put it.
What was the other one? The last policy?
That's new. We're gonna have a motion on that next.
There's three.
The last one of the three.
Evaluation requirements for children with specific learning disabilities.
No, I'm sorry, Pam, let me help. GBD was the non-union support staff wages.
That's one.
Yep. JFABD was education of homeless children and unaccompanied youth.
That's the one we just talked about.
Yep. And then the education of children in foster care.
That's the new
No,
one.
that's the new one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, thank you.
No, this is the one, learning disabilities.
Evaluation
That
requirements
is
of
a very
children.
short policy, revised policy. And Jody recommends that we adopt this revised draft.
That's the new one.
No, that's
No.
the revised one.
Okay.
It's revised.
sorry.
We have
Sorry.
a
Thank you.
policy,
Sorry.
Okay.
HBAA, we're just
Who's on
revising it.
first?
I mean, so I guess so long as we continue with the practice that Tom has outlined, I'm okay with it. But that ought to be the practice. We ought not be allowing, if some child is unfortunate enough to be homeless and have to come to school and hasn't been vaccinated, it's our responsibility to them and to the other kids to get them vaccinated.
But it's important to remember that if they're not vaccinated, they can only catch or give it to someone else who's not vaccinated. 11 kids are not vaccinated in one way, and they're not even in the same school. The middle school has 0.
Well, that's the odds are on your side, but there's always the one odd.
If you've been vaccinated, you shouldn't catch it. But yes,
Okay.
good point.
So could we have a vote on the question?
Right, well, let's,
Yeah.
finish that.
We'll move to approve the 3 revised policies. All in favor?
I can sway you once in a while. Just a little.
So the last one was, I'd like a motion to approve JFABE as amended following second read. And that is,
Pam, are you asking for first and second on this one?
no, it's already been
We already did the
read
first read
for a
last time.
first time. It's a new policy, and instead of homeless, it involves children in foster care. So there's a slight difference compared to the one we had just approved. And again, this is mandated language, but it's not required, but Jody strongly recommends that we approve this policy as well.
I would concur with Jody on that.
And I read it through, it seems reasonable. I didn't find any issues with it.
Jody has to deal with it on a daily basis. I trust her judgment.
Okay, so need a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
I wanted to talk about it
Oops.
until about 9 o'clock, so I'll take Ellie off.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm all set. You can always abstain.
I'm all set.
Okay, so, did you get the vote on this? I didn't.
All in favor?
Okay, it's unanimous. All right, good. I thought we were watching Dr. Strangelove. Okay.
Thank you.
That's it, I think.
Good job as usual, Pam.
Yeah, Pam, thank you.
I'm ready for law school, graduate from law school.
This policy law school.
Yep. She would be really good.
Okay, second public comment. Do we have any non-public? I don't think we do.
All right. Leave it.
Hi, Mary Sear from Kingston. I would like to thank Superintendent Ambrose and the school board for being sensitive to the public's concern for some more transparency and direct access to Mr. Chinberg. So thank you for arranging and approving, deviating from your normal protocol of not allowing an exchange, per Robert's rules. I think it was very important and very wise. I'm only disappointed that more people who were very vocal and outspoken about it didn't seem to find it worthy to come tonight. I think you guys have been nothing but honest, open, and transparent about this, and you've done your best work for this community. And it is a big, complicated ball of wax. We've got the purists who don't want to lose any integrity in that building. We've got the folks who want to get maximum equity out of that for, I guess, allocation to taxpayers or to defer some costs. But I think that you truly have been very deliberate and methodical and acting in the best interest of the public in bringing forth this particular developer to satisfy the needs and wants of many, this very big, complicated ball of folks in this circle of concern. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you all very wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Okay, anything on the agenda for next meeting that anybody has? Yep.
I just wanted to point out, next meeting is the 5th, right? It's a deliberative.
Yes.
I will not be able to attend.
Yes, we're all pleased with that. I mean, I'm sorry.
It's a short meeting, Jamie.
Yeah.
No, but I just wanted to explain that, I will be traveling. I'll be in Indianapolis, and it's basically a new role I've had to take on at work, and this is the kickoff, and I have to be there to participate, so.
You bringing us back anything
best of luck.
other
Best
than a
of luck,
t-shirt?
Yeah, brick road, I guess it's called, the racetrack there.
Jamie went on vacation. All he gave us was his t-shirt.
Yeah.
I told Pete that there's no non-public, but we actually do need a very brief one. I'm sorry.
Okay. So we got the agenda. Okay, announcements. The next Sanborn Regional School Board meeting will be held prior to the deliberative session on Wednesday, February 5th from 5:30 to 6:30. We're going to meet here 5:30 to 6:30, okay? In room 102 at the Sanborn Regional High School, 17 Danville Road, Kingston, New Hampshire, with the deliberative session to follow in the high school auditorium at 7. So everybody get that all right? 5:30 to 6 and then 7. All right. Snow date for the deliberative session will be Thursday, February 6th, 2020 at 7 p.m. We would have the meeting 1 hour before. Just our snow day will be the next night.
No snow day.
Okay.
No snow days.
Okay, here we go. The filing period position of the Sanborn Regional School Board, the Sanborn Regional Budget Committee, and the District Moderator will be open on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020, and end on Friday, January 31, 2020 at 5 p.m. The candidates' filing forms may be obtained at the SAU office from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., located in the Christie Building at 51 Church Street in Kingston. The school district clerk will be available on the last day to file until 5 p.m. The second voting session of the annual Regional School District meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 10th, 2020 from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the Swayze Gymnasium, Sanborn Seminary campus for Kingston voters, and in the Newton Town Hall for the Newton voters. Do I have a motion for a non-public, Larry?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into non-public session per RSA 91-A, colon number 3, Roman numeral 2. My voice is gone.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Larry?
Yes.
Jamie? Yeah, you gotta say yes.
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 Yes. Unanimous voice vote.
Thank you, everyone.